Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Christian Elise about FX's Pistol on Hulu and Disney+. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to chat with you. You have a great energy.
Oh, I'm excited. Well, we got to be excited because, I remember when it was announced that there was going to be a show about the Sex Pistols. I was pumped. I was excited. You're curious, right? Because biopics always interest you, especially in music. What's it like being part of a show when music is like the focal point of our lives right now, right? So it's like a show that's basically about a band that like started a lot of important kind of things for punk and rock. Like what's that like for you being part of a show like that?
I felt very privileged.
Yep.
I felt like I was, just given this great honor and responsibility almost. The one aspect I know in England, everybody auditioned for it. So in that way, I know I felt privileged. It was just every actor of my age knew about this show.
Yeah.
Because who wouldn't want to work on it with Danny Boyle and this kind of show?
Yep.
Actually, ironically, my first audition, I was one of the only actors that didn't know it was the Sex Pistols. I guess a few of the actors did get that information. I just got this random 70s band. It was all very secret. So I tried to fill in the gaps and I guessed that it was the Stones, and I guessed wrong for my first audition. And I kind of did a very, very vague Mick Jagger, which may have helped because they have him and Glen have a similar cadence. But yeah, on the other side of it, I just really felt the weight of it, and I just wanted to get it right. I hope we did.
That's interesting because adaptations and biopics where you're playing a person that actually existed, I always feel like there's always going to be that pressure and overwhelming aspect of it. But does the excitement overcome it at all? Like in the end? Or is it still kind of just a double-edged sword?
It depends on what you're shooting.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're shooting, because there was some recreating of footage that I think could have been stressful, but the way that Danny organized it was so fun. We felt like we were stepping into the footage. We'd all seen the footage so many times. For example, the Grundy Show incident where they famously swore on TV, or some of the performances that we got to recreate.
Yeah.
It was so fun. You felt like you were a part of history. Fun fact, I think we actually shot that Grundy Show in the same building, or in that same area. So it felt very cyclical. And then other times I did feel the pressure. I mean, I got to meet Glenn, so I knew he was going to watch it. So it was pretty tough to like try and forget about that when I was on set.
That's so crazy. So I'm excited to ask you this question. So my favorite movie of all time is School of Rock with Jack Black. That's my favorite movie of all time. Great movie.
Great movie.
So there's a part in it where there's like a montage, right? Where he's teaching all the kids about rock history, right?
Yes.
So did you and the cast have any of those days where you were just kind of like taught about music and some of the bands and everything? Like, what was the research like?
We did actually. We did. It was like
nice.
We could have called the band. We had band camp for months before the shoot.
So awesome.
We could have called it School of Rock. Genuinely, we could have done. We just got the very first thing. First of all, the other lads, I want to say, were amazingly welcoming because I got cast late. They had 3 months of rehearsal. I had 2 weeks.
Did you feel like the new kid at school a little bit? Because they're
100%.
already.
It was like a baptism of fire. First of all, they had a very chaotic energy anyway. I think they were all getting into that Pistols vibe. But to be honest, I think it helped me because Glenn was the least punk or the least chaotic. So it did kind of make me feel like, oh my God, they're literally climbing the ceiling. And and I was just like, okay, I just was thrown in at the deep end. But yeah, we got given this playlist of music. We were given all the greats and we just were told to soak it all in. I played the bass 2 weeks. I learned the bass for it.
Nice.
I played 10 on drums before that. But I had 2 weeks to do it, and I basically played the bass every day, and I just had to play through the blisters. I had to bring like liquid Band-Aid into Bandcamp, so that when like one of my blisters would pop, I'd just cover it and carry on. It was.
So you actually had like a band camp. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, we learned to play. I mean, the end of it, one of the best parts about the job is we would have confidently been able to do a gig, at least of their songs. We could have, and we did. When we shot the show, one of the things I love about this, I mean, there's some big players on this. There's Hulu, FX, Disney, some big money in it.
Massive, absolutely.
And so there's a tendency to be kind of, I don't know, they want it to be perfect. They want it to be squeaky clean. So we could have done the option where we went into the studio and recorded it and mimed it. Danny was so adamant we didn't do that. The music team was so adamant we didn't do that. So when you see the band playing in the show, what you're hearing is what the crew heard on the day. It's what the camera guys heard. It's what it's hardly touched in post.
Yeah.
It's just us. So I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
I think it wouldn't have felt authentic the other way, I don't think.
To add to that, it's perfect segue to my next question. There's a lot at play when you kind of sign on to this, you start filming it and everything. When you're preparing to play Glen Matlock and everything, is aesthetic something that comes to mind most of the time as well? Because you're kind of going back in time and you're playing the Sex Pistols. You know, the look is going to be something everyone that's going to watch it is going to be curious about, right? Does the aesthetic always kind of pop up in your mind a lot?
Yeah. I mean, I had little like scrapbooks and I had collages of him. I tried to get, he was like, I think he cared about fashion a lot. I think what isn't covered in the show is that his entrance into the band was through Malcolm. He actually knew Malcolm before the rest of the band. He worked at Sex. He doesn't work at Sex in the show, but so I read his book, obviously. I tried to soak up, he's got a few young interviews and I just tried to soak up his mannerisms, and you're right, his look. He would do this weird thing where he only had like one collar up. And he had it in so many pictures. I thought that was very intentional, you know. So I just tried to soak him up as much as possible, and then you forget about it. As actors, you just have to kind of do your research, and then when you're on set, forget about it and hope that subconsciously somewhere those mannerisms have stuck.
After, you know, you shoot this thing, you do the band camp, you said, you do research about it. You know, you look at bands like the Sex Pistols, you look at bands like the Ramones. I mean, some of my favorite bands that I listen to every day, like the pop punk, like the Blink-182, the Green Day, they would never be around if it wasn't for these bands. It's kind of crazy to think about that a little bit, right? Like you're playing, you know, a member of one of these like influential bands.
Oh my God, dude. I completely agree with you, first of all, because I think one of the things I'm most grateful for this show is teaching me that.
Yes.
I'm a little bit ashamed to say I did not know really that how big an impact they had. I knew God Save the Queen and I knew Anarchy in the UK and I knew John and Sid. That's all I knew. I didn't really know the rest of the band. I didn't know Glenn. I didn't know any of it.
See, I knew Glenn, and when I saw that you were playing Glenn, I was like, that's going to be a cool role. Like, I knew, see, like, what do you know? Like, there are bands that you study in school, man. Like, there are books about Sex Pistols, like, in libraries. I'm just saying.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I've learned that now. And so I really, you can't, we're all fans of them now. You really cannot not be. First of all, it's such a misconception that they couldn't play. Trust me. I'm a musician as well as an actor, and they could play. And they had such an impact. You're exactly right. Listening to any music nowadays, especially those bands you just referenced, Green Day, any of those kind of post-punk stuff, we have them to thank for that. Yeah. We would not have that. It would be completely different. We'd be living in the Twilight Zone. So they really did change pop culture as we know it.
You want to hear something crazy? So I'm a big music guy, right? So I remember... So there's a lot of crossover between like heavy metal and punk and like pop punk and everything. Like the fans of the genres like it. Like I grew up going to a lot of heavy metal concerts. Okay. I grew up going to a lot of pop punk concerts. I remember the coolest thing was at a Blink-182 concert in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We were waiting in line to go see them. We were like in line with like these metalheads that were wearing like death metal shirts, right? Or just like, we're talking metal, but we're like, he's like, well, yeah, but we also love punk. You know what I mean? Like it's become such a universal like
bridges the
genre.
Gap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, it also is so much more than the music. I don't think there's many genres of music that have such a strong aesthetic, that have such a look. I mean, fashion was so much to do with it. It was so much statements and so much like politics, and it was just a movement, really.
It's a movement, but it's also, Christian, it's and you're going to groove me on this, okay? The politics and everything, that's his whole other thing, right? But there's this swag, right? There's this presence of like, wow, like the Sex Pistols, you know what I mean? Like the raw kind of sound, like they're cool, you know what I mean? Green Day is one of my favorite bands of all time. Billy Joe Armstrong in concert, he has this swag and this ability with his hands and fingers to control the crowd. Like it's like a wild thing. Like there's a lot of swagger in punk rock.
Oh, I agree with you, dude. I agree. And there's this, you're right, there's an energy. And I you have to tell me if it's the same with Green Day, because I used to be a massive fan of Green Day as a kid. I'm not like a proper fan.
Have you seen them? You haven't seen them in concert, right?
I haven't, no. Okay. I literally just posted to my story, though, and used When September Ends, Green Day. I used Green Day. But yeah, to do with their energy, I thought what's so interesting about, first of all, how young they were, and they had this stage presence and this energy. I think part of their power came from the fact they were working class.
Yep.
I know that sounds interesting, but in the 70s, most of the rock icons were untouchable. They had the clothes and this money, and as much as they wanted to sing about what it was like to be at the bottom, they weren't at the bottom. And the Sex Pistols did start at the bottom, and they did get spat at, and they didn't flinch. They had stuff thrown at them, and they just had a fearlessness. Maybe that's part of their swagger. Maybe
it is that, and I think, and you know what? Like I've seen them do interviews, like the original Sex Pistols do interviews. They hate it when people say that they were like a gimmick band. Like they hate that. They're like, no, we were a band. We were a punk rock band. But it's in the trailer too, right? Like, come see us live. We're terrible, right? There was a lot. The bands in the 70s and the 80s, you know, were kind of like the virtuosos of their instruments and everything. You know what I mean? It was kind of a new statement. Just kind of get up there, you know, play your like sing your messages and just get on there and not care about like the art. Like, you know what I mean? It was like they were important in regards to that as well.
Totally. But I think it wasn't an accident, because like that's what I think people could think is, oh, they got here by accident. No, I think it was very intentional. I think the most complex part about it, obviously, apart from some of the great musical things, was the lyrics. But you're exactly right. I think a young person listening to that, who maybe was a starter on the guitar, could suddenly go, oh, maybe I can do that. If they just pound the hell out of their guitar, they suddenly think, oh, maybe I can be doing that. And there's a lot of those punk bands like you said, The Clash and Ian Drury, that specifically say they were in a Sex Pistols show. They were in the audience when they got the bug, and they were like, I have to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so true that you brought that up, because that's one of we love seeing, though, we're very interested in like origin stories, though, aren't we, Christian? We like to see where it all started, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, the amount of musical biopics recently is just, you know, gone through the roof. I love it. To be honest, I love that. As an actor, I've had a little bit of a tendency to play real people, and I feel very lucky about that, because that's, to be honest, a passion of mine. It really interests me. Don't get me wrong, I love creating a character and looking at a script and going, oh, I can go anywhere. But there's something about stepping into someone else's shoes and trying to get into their mindset and researching them that's fascinating. And then you bring the music on board. Yeah, we've seen a lot of it, and I think there should be more. I'm excited for Elvis. I haven't seen Elvis yet. Writer on Pistol wrote Elvis. Craig Pierce. And then what we got? Someone's doing Bob Dylan, I think. So everything's coming out.
There was the Queen one for Bohemian Rhapsody. There was, you know, there was one. Netflix did one for Motley Crue called The Dirt, which I really enjoyed. Like, there's a lot of them. It's cool to kind of dive in. Very cool. Before we wrap up too, maybe I feel like the answer to this is maybe no, but were you guys able to keep some of the like jackets or some of the clothes
You know
Okay,
what? I know that there are definitely people on the set that manage that. Okay. And me probably being completely in character was just, and the amount of hints I dropped so many hints. When I was getting in costume, I'm like, man, this jacket, though,
this is a cool
really
jacket.
cool. And it fits me like really well. Just like, wow, look at that. It's almost tailored to me. And then,
you know what my best part about today was, guys, like that jacket just felt, it felt right.
Okay, it cool. Really, genuinely. And I'm starting, as I get older, nobody's going to hire me now, but I'm not above just taking it. Because I've heard so many actors that just took it and then nothing happened. And I'm just like, oh, why aren't I brave enough to just accidentally wear it home?
Follow the rules. Unlike the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, this is why everybody called me Glenn. There was so much chaos around. And I'd be like, guys, don't climb on that. Okay? You're going to injure yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Relax, Glenn. Settle down, Glenn.
You're literally giving me flashbacks. That was my whole set experience. I mean, on the set, I felt like I felt like it was more akin to being on the set of Jackass.
Was it almost like, could we call this like method acting a little bit then?
Oh, 100% there was method acting going on, because I think everybody, it was life imitating art. And we did it, I think it was subconscious, but we kind of, when we had, it helped before scenes, we would slot into those roles. Even if we were talking about modern stuff, we were subconsciously bickering, and subconsciously we were trying to get some of that energy. So I think it worked.
Oh, absolutely. Christian, thank you so much for coming on Pop Turtle. It was so great chatting with you, man. Seriously, thank you.
Great to chat with you, dude. Yeah, I love talking about music and the show, and I'm glad you liked it.
I loved it, and people will be able to see it. It's FX Pistol on Hulu and Disney+. Where can people follow you to keep update with everything on social media? Instagram is probably the best way to go?
It's mainly Instagram. Yeah, it's mainly Instagram. I've got Twitter. I don't understand it. So Instagram, Christian_Lees is my handle.
Amazing. Well, this has been Pop Turnitive, youtube.com/Pop Turnitive. Previous episodes. Until next time, this is Christian Lees, who plays Glen Matlock in FX's Pistol, which is available on Hulu and Disney+. Until next time, this is Christian and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Turnitive. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Pop Turnitive on YouTube. Be sure to like Pop Turnitive on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.